I'm not a huge fan of like an organization, like the big organization saying this is how you have to do it at a certain age. But at the same time, what do? You're trying to implement a system to make Canada strong. So why is Sweden such a good hockey nation when they have such a small population? Sweden, Finland, all these European things, they have a system that works, right, for such a small population. So maybe there's something to be said for an organization implementing it, especially if there's people that have been around the game and get it. So, but let me go back to the small area game stuff or the cross ice hockey. Is I personally love it, and to this day, I use it with my junior pro guys. I use it with at every level because they're so effective and they're so good for skill building. So you don't even have to be the smartest coach in the world. If you did nothing but play small area games, like in my opinion, you can become a better hockey player. So if you back it up to the youth level, then it actually only makes sense. I mean, you've heard this before probably, that, in football or soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, we'll call it soccer because we're North America. Does it actually make sense for 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds or whatever to be playing on that full field with like, I mean, the goalie looks like this in front of the net, right? The little cup of coffee here. Like if it's not around him, it's going to the net. So it doesn't make sense. Your skill building wouldn't be as good. The field's way too big. And so is hockey. So what happens when you're really, really young? If a kid can skate, that's the start. He's got the puck and then he keeps the puck and everybody else kind of gets up the ice and this guy goes the other way and you're chasing this guy around. So with the small area games, okay, so we'll start with the youth. With the small area games, all of a sudden now you're playing from the blue line in cross ice. Everybody can be around the puck, and you're working every skill you possibly can, pretty much, right? You have the ability maybe to get to that puck, so maybe you try a little bit harder or whatever. But for the good players, you are going to have the puck more. You can use your skill set if whatever you have at that age. So you're stick handling and you're shooting and you're skating and you're turning and all that kind of stuff. You get to do it a lot more. If you bobble a puck, you can get right back at it and battle. So that's good. What's good is people always talk about goalie development. Like there's got to be better goalie development. Well, if you play a full ice game at 7 or 8 years old all the time, then what are shots? Right? Like, are they good quality shots? Do you get 10 good shots in a game? If you play cross ice, you're probably going to get in a hour game, 30, 40, 50. Who knows? Right? Like, I've never really done the numbers on that, but there's a ton of shots. So your goalies get developed. Okay, so what about your weaker players? Well, your weaker players around the puck more. You're stopping, starting, turning, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just a good idea that they implemented that. Now, mandating it, whatever, but I'm good. I was good with it. But a lot of parents
I didn't
weren't.
realize there was a resistance to that. Like, well, obviously there was, eh? Like, obviously there was.
Big time.
Anytime
dude.
you try to do anything, people freak out. But because it just makes sense. It's an issue of scale, right? Like when you're a baby, you don't sit in the same chair as your mom and dad, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't fit. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't get.
You don't buy them an adult.
You can't reach the table, dude.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
right.
So when it's just an issue. It's a scale thing, right? You play the game. If grown men are playing on that size ice, that means a certain amount of time to make decisions, a certain amount of space that you have. And so you scale it down so that it's appropriate for the size, the speed, whatever. And that's a really good point too about, I always say this about young kids. And the reason that, and we always say this, the reason that the kids that are the best when they're young aren't always or typically the best when they're 16, 17, 18 is because it is probably the kid that was the biggest first or the fastest first or could shoot or raise the puck first. And if you got a goalie that's the size of the tripod here and he's standing in the full size net and this kid knows how to raise the puck, he's going to score every shot, right? So there's all kinds of issues that come when the scale isn't the same. So it seems like an obvious no-brainer to kind of move for the development of the kids to scale things down to what's appropriate for their size and speed and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. One of the big things I heard with a lot of the parents is they're not going to learn how to play real hockey. They don't know their positions and stuff. But no, and people say stuff, right? But like if you put it in perspective, well, if you watch a U10 game, even
there's no positions,
house league or up to like guys are chasing pucks, like so there are really no positions. Like, to be
There
honest
isn't.
with
Yeah,
you.
you can say you
Right.
can line them up
So,
for the face-off in a position, but as soon as the puck drops, if the defenseman knows how to skate the best, he's gonna go and get 4 breakaways a shift because he knows how to skate, right?
right. Now, can you throw the kids a bone and play a full ice game like once a month or once a week? I don't know. I don't know what the numbers are.
Well, this is
Okay.
where your mandate thing comes in, right? This would be where I'm on the same page as you as don't not a fan of mandating things where it's like you don't have the option. So it's like if one day it's like you always play blue line down and the kids are all like, "Hey, can we do like full ice?" So it's like the Toronto Maple Leafs today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Throw
yeah,
some
tunes
tunes
on,
on.
and like you
Yeah.
can't do that. Like you're not allowed. It's like that's annoying, right? So that's where I agree with the mandate
Well, they
thing.
also mandated, like Hockey Canada mandated from what I, well, this is true because I have a brother-in-law that has had his son in youth hockey, so he's I think 10, 11. So a couple years ago, they had their practices. They weren't allowed to, like, let's say the first couple weeks they were only allowed to skate. They weren't allowed to touch a puck, and then pucks were introduced after 3 4 weeks, and then like so there was no gameplay whatsoever. It's just practice for the first 2 3 months. It's like, well, okay, so here's my next issue is when you mandate stuff like that. I understand that you're trying to do skill building, but what happens is you're taking the purpose of playing hockey away.
Okay, pushback though. So if that's kind of us talking from our perspective where like we would know what to do. So let's say most of the time if you're a youth like if you're coaching a U10A team or you're doing the house league team for your kid when he's 8 or whatever, like I for example, sometimes I go watch my godson. He plays on Sundays, and he's 9, turning 9, and they just play house league. Like they're just whatever. It's all dads. None of them know how to do anything. None of the dads know how to teach anything. So is the mandate better in that situation where it's like they have a people that don't know, they have something like a step by step to go by? Because I would feel like most of the people that are in the coaching position don't actually know what to do, right?
It's a good question. It sounds perfect. Sounds perfect. But you have to take it to the kids. If you wonder why people want to go home and just play video games rather than going to
Right. Yeah.
hockey,
Yeah.
if I had to do power skating for the first 3 weeks when I'm 7 and not touch a puck and not play, and listen to a guy with a mustache and glasses tell me to bend my knees and do the
Fall down, get up.
the
Yeah.
duck, yeah, the Superman. It's okay. It's not fun anymore. I want to play hockey, and that's where I think the biggest thing is. It's play hockey, and then you can add the development in there. So I'm not saying it's stupid to do skill stuff at that age. It's not. But so is there a compromise that you could have? Like, yeah, we got an hour of ice, and the first 20 minutes is going to be stations of skill, and then you get to play a game. I mean, that's what kids want to do when they're young, right? So that's to me what it is. So as we get older now with this mandated in, or I want to stay with the small areas here, the small area games is why do you think NHL teams do small area games and stuff all the time?
Yeah.
Because it's
great.
really good. Because you're around pucks, you're battling, especially in your small area games. Like it doesn't have to be just drills. Like the more that you can get competition and a result or a win, it takes the competitive element up, right? So like I do that summer part of our training is that because you can stick handle all day and stuff, but like, what do you do in a game? So you could be a great practice player doing drills, but can you actually play in a game? That's where there's multiple small area games and cross ice games and long skinny games and stuff like that that you can do that brings out the competitiveness. And if there is competitive, you want to win. So there's the defensive side, the offensive side. You move the puck. You got guys getting on you, like
Constant
right.
transition. Oh yeah.
It's important that you make the play because I want to win. You know, the game's up to 5. I want 5, and so you get everything there. You get passing. You get everything, all the elements of hockey, in a different way, and it's a lot of fun. So you keep the skill building high. And to me, and I've said this before, if I could do one thing, like my favorite way of training players is to do some skill stuff, whether it's sticking like a combination of skill stuff, and then implement it into a small area game where it's transferable, right? So if you're working on, let's say, a certain stick handling move on a pylon, you might look really good, but if you're getting against a player and you can never get around them, or if you can never protect the puck, then I guess that skill building wasn't worth it, right? So that's why I think the small area games are so big or so good. So a lot of times In the small area games, people just think of the cross ice games and stuff like that, but there's so many ways that you can do it, right? So we have a 2 in 2 out game, so it's played within the tops of the circles to the dots, and it's let's just say it's black, white, black. So you're not allowed to stick handle, not at the older levels, not allowed to stick handle, not allowed to hold the puck for more than a second. So you got two guys defending, so that puck's got to buzz around. You can shoot at any time. So as soon as it touches the stick of the two defenders, then there's two block out, 2 in 2 out. So it's just constant. What that does, that game right there, is it gets you to think real fast in small areas, and then when you're defending real fast and making quick decisions. So I think in the small area stuff, you are thinking and building skill at the same time. So at every level, like Charlie was saying, what they do on very often, they have games and gift card day. So they compete playing these small area games, and it's intense. It's the best. Or do you want to do sprints, or do you want to do cone drills, or do you want to do the flow drills? Like this is actually the best thing. There's obviously a combination of everything, but to me, if I was so when you ask the question about coaches that don't know or don't have the ability to relate things, what would you rather see that coach do? Do a passing drill that he doesn't really have a grasp of? It's the big horseshoe that you never make a pass, or would you like to see them play 15 minutes of a 2 in 2 out or a small area game, cross ice, an activation game, or something like that? The kids will like it more, and you're going to get more out of it. You know what I mean? So I'm not necessarily right, but I'm pretty right. Yeah,
well,
you know what I mean?
And
that's just
and for me too, through experience. Like when I playing from minor or youth hockey to junior, right through to the university, the best parts of practice were always the competing games. Like by far, that's the most fun, and you're applying the most skill. Like that's as close to the actual game as you're gonna get, right? When you're doing that small area stuff. So that's for sure.
I know a lot of the kids that have done our 3-on-3 tournaments. We just asked one yesterday, and he said, "I'd do it right now. I wish we had an OHL one, or a junior one, or a pro one." Like at
and
Christmas.
I have guys that are just too old now that are all bummed. We were talking about it last week. They're all bummed because they can't come in. We didn't have a division for them now.
Yeah,
so,
but especially when the key element to this is having a competition, like having something that you're playing for. If it's just you play and there's no consequence or no winner, then it becomes just almost not irrelevant, but it's not as important. But you'll see when there's you put one small thing on the line. Could be push-ups, could be a sprint, it could be a slushy, could be anything like that. A gift card at the end of the year, whatever. Then you can see guys compete because there's something at stake.